So imagine you're sitting across from, a highly paid wealth manager in some fancy glass-walled office, right?
Right.
And you ask them for the absolute ultimate strategy to protect your portfolio.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. And instead of bringing up like asset allocation or index funds or tax loss harvesting, they just look you dead in the eye and say, uh, to guarantee your wealth, you must first master the emotion of shame.
Oh, wow.
And then you need to cultivate a deep, abiding fear of harming others.
Yeah, you'd probably walk right out of that office.
Exactly. You'd find a new financial advisor immediately. It sounds completely absurd to the modern ear. But today we're asking that age-old cliche, is it true that money can't buy happiness?
It's the ultimate question.
It really is. And the crazy thing is the Buddha actually already answered that over 2.5 millennia ago.
Yeah, he did. And it's not the answer most people assume it is.
Not at all. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a stack of translated texts sitting right in front of us. Ancient Buddhist discourses, specifically suttas like the Anaṇa, the Digajanu, and the Sigalovada.
Plus some really fascinating modern academic and theological analyses of Buddhist economics.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to basically extract the exact step-by-step framework that the Buddha laid out for building, protecting, and actually enjoying wealth.
Without falling into the psychological traps of modern consumerism, which is key.
Right. We want to figure out how to do this while keeping our sanity intact, because to understand this financial advice, we have to shatter this massive misconception first. I mean, the prevailing myth is that Buddhism demands total poverty from everyone.
Oh, absolutely. That you have to, give up all your worldly possessions and go sit in a cave to achieve any sort of spiritual validity.
The ascetic monk trope.
Exactly. But it's a complete misreading of the source material when it comes to everyday people. It's a profound paradigm shift when you actually read these primary sources.
Okay, so let's unpack this. How does the text actually view poverty for, like, the average person, the lay person?
Well, it explicitly prohibits it.
Wait, really? Prohibits?
Yeah. In the Agatara Nikaya, which is one of the major collections of these discourses, poverty is framed almost as a structural crime against human agency.
Wow, a structural crime.
Yeah, the text literally says, woeful in the world is poverty and debt. The philosophy recognizes that material deprivation sets off this cascading sequence of systemic failures.
Right, because if you're poor, you have to borrow.
Exactly. Poverty forces you into borrowing, which plunges you into debt, which severely restricts your autonomy. And when your autonomy is restricted, you're forced into desperate reactionary decisions just to survive.
Which makes maintaining any kind of ethical standard pretty much impossible.
Precisely. You can't be ethical if you're just trying not to starve.
That is spot on with modern neurobiology, honestly. I mean, researchers today study the neurobiology of scarcity, and they've found that poverty literally imposes a cognitive tax on the brain.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if you are terrified about making rent or, feeding your kids, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles long-term planning and morals, it just gets hijacked by the amygdala.
You're just in survival mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're operating from a place of raw survival. If someone is starving, they are going to steal the bread. The suffering just compounds, not just financially, but neurologically.
And that cognitive hijacking is exactly what this ancient framework is trying to prevent. The texts use this really sharp categorization system in the Anaṇa Sutta to describe how people navigate this.
The Anaṇa Sutta, right. What does that one say?
So it divides people into 3 archetypes based on their vision. The first is the blind person.
Okay, the blind person.
Right. This is someone who is totally paralyzed in both domains. They don't have the skills or knowledge to acquire material wealth, but they also lack the internal moral compass to tell right from wrong.
So they're completely adrift. No economic leverage, no ethical foundation, just a totally reactive state.
Exactly. Then you have the second archetype, which is the one-eyed person.
The one-eyed person.
Yeah. This is an individual who has immense economic acuity. They understand markets, they can scale a business, they are great at amassing capital. But their vision is asymmetrical.
Meaning they only see the money.
Right. The eye for profit is wide open, but the eye for moral discernment is completely blind. They'll acquire wealth by any means necessary, completely oblivious to the collateral damage.
Oh man, we see the one-eyed archetype constantly today. I mean, think about the ruthless corporate raider who just dismantles a century-old company, right?
Liquidates the pension funds.
Exactly, and walks away with a massive payout while thousands lose their jobs.
Hmm.
Or, the tech founder who scales a platform that algorithmically amplifies societal division just because it drives ad revenue.
Yep. They are economically masterful, but they treat negative externalities as someone else's problem.
Spiritually and ethically bankrupt.
Which is why the texts consider the one-eyed person to be in a state of profound peril, because their wealth is built on suffering, which means it's inherently unstable.
Okay, so what's the ideal then?
The ultimate ideal for a householder is the two-eyed person.
The two-eyed person.
Makes sense.
Yeah. This is someone who sees with absolute clarity in both realms. They have the rigorous financial literacy to generate wealth, but they also have the ethical wisdom to acquire it without exploiting others.
Okay, I love that concept, like a modern
Mhm.
ethical entrepreneur. But wait, I have to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't Buddhism all about detachment? Like, how does the rigorous pursuit of wealth, even if it's ethical, actually fit into spiritual growth? Doesn't wanting to build a profitable business just cultivate the craving that causes suffering?
It sounds like a total paradox, I know. But you have to look at the mechanical role of wealth in this system.
Okay.
Wealth is never, ever categorized as an end in itself. It is strictly a means. It's a logistical tool to stabilize the human organism.
So it's just a tool.
Right. I mean, you can't pursue rigorous intellectual study or deep meditation if your nervous system is screaming for basic survival needs like food, shelter, clothing, and medicine. Oh, so it's essentially Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just predating Maslow by, a few millennia.
Exactly. You have to secure the physiological baseline first. There's actually a great story in the text about this.
Oh, let's hear it.
So the Buddha was traveling and was supposed to give this highly anticipated sermon to a huge crowd. But he refused to start speaking because one single poor farmer had just arrived.
Just one guy held up the whole event.
Yeah, this farmer had spent the whole day frantically looking for a lost ox, which was his livelihood. He was exhausted, dehydrated, starving. And the Buddha literally paused the entire event and ordered that this farmer be fed and rested first.
That's wild. He halted the dissemination of enlightenment to make sure one guy got lunch?
Because he understood the biological reality. The text says, hunger is the most significant ailment. You simply cannot digest complex spiritual truths on an empty stomach.
The physical distress is a total blockade.
Right. So the two-eyed person understands that wealth is the tool used to silence that physical distress. By securing capital, you're buying the psychological bandwidth you need to pursue higher states of being.
Wow. That completely reorganizes how we look at money. I mean, we're taught that the wealth is the achievement. The yacht, the portfolio, that's the finish line.
But it's really just the scaffolding.
Yeah, exactly. The scaffolding you stand on to build the actual building. But that brings up a massive question for me.
What's that?
Once the scaffolding is up, right? Once basic needs are met, how exactly does that capital convert into actual, genuine happiness? Because, the modern world is littered with miserable multimillionaires. Just having money doesn't automatically trigger joy.
And that is the exact friction point addressed in the Anaṇa Sutta.
Anaṇa Sutta.
Yeah, it documents a dialogue between the Buddha and a guy named Anathapittika.
Okay, who was he?
He was essentially an ancient billionaire,
Yeah.
a hugely successful merchant and banker, and the Buddha doesn't tell him to give it all away.
He doesn't.
No. He lays out a highly specific four-part formula for how a layperson can extract genuine joy from their capital. They're called the four joys of a householder.
Okay, I'm taking notes. What's the first one?
The first is adesukha, which translates to the joy of having.
The joy of having. That sounds identical to modern consumerism on the surface, like the thrill of looking at your new car or your bank balance.
It would be, if the definition stopped there. But the framework has a massive caveat. This isn't the thrill of unearned capital. It's not inheriting a trust fund.
Right.
The texts define adesukha strictly as the quiet pride of ownership that comes only when the wealth is acquired by energetic striving, by the sweat of the brow, and is righteously gained.
Oh, so it's the dignity of agency.
Exactly.
It's the psychological weight of knowing you exerted competence in the world and the world rewarded you. Like someone handing you a chair versus you going into the woods, chopping down a tree and building the chair yourself.
The utility of the chair is the same, but your psychological relationship to it is fundamentally different. It's the joy of actualized potential.
I love that. Okay, what's the second joy?
The second joy moves from accumulation to distribution. It's bogusukha, the joy of partaking or enjoying.
So actually using the money.
Right. Capital is useless sitting in a vault. The joy comes from deploying it to sustain yourself comfortably, shielding your family from hardship, and doing meritorious deeds like charity.
This speaks to the velocity of money. It's not about hoarding it like a dragon on a pile of gold. The joy is the kinetic energy of it moving through your hands to create stability for your kids or funding a local clinic.
Exactly. Wealth as a dynamic force for stabilization.
Okay, number 3.
The third joy shifts inward, and honestly, this might be the most visceral one for a modern audience. It's Anaṇa Sutta, the joy of debtlessness.
Oh man, the joy of debtlessness.
Yeah, it's defined as the profound psychological relief of owing absolutely nothing to anyone, large or small.
We really need to pause on this because it's incredible that ancient writers understood the physiological burden of debt long before we knew about cortisol or allostatic load.
They absolutely did.
I mean, in our modern economy, powered by leveraged credit, debt is basically normalized temporal slavery. When you take on massive consumer debt, you're literally borrowing labor from your future self.
You're legally binding your future hours to a creditor.
Exactly. And that creates this constant low-grade background hum of terror in your nervous system. You can't walk away from a toxic job if you have a massive mortgage. You're trapped.
It completely restricts your freedom of choice.
But anyone who has ever spent years grinding down a massive debt like student loans knows that the exact moment you submit that final payment, there is a literal physical sensation of weight lifting off your chest.
Your breathing actually changes.
Yes, that is Anaṇa Sutta, reclaiming ownership over your own future time. It's wild that this was codified as a primary economic goal 2,500 years ago.
It really is.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating here is how the Anaṇa Sutta mathematically weighs these first three joys against the fourth one.
There's a fourth joy.
Yes, Anavajasukha, the joy of blamelessness.
Blamelessness.
This is the psychological state of knowing with absolute certainty that your actions, bodily, verbally, mentally, are completely pure. You haven't exploited or harmed anyone to secure your position.
Your conscience is pristine.
Right. And the Buddha tells the billionaire, Anathapittika, to take the joy of honest wealth, the joy of providing, and the joy of being jet-free, and add them all together.
Okay.
He states that the sum total of those three joys combined is not worth a 16th part of the joy of blamelessness.
Wait, a 16th part?
A tiny fraction.
So the first three combined are worth less than, 6% of the total possible joy? The math there is fascinating.
It's a huge multiplier.
Basically, the framework is arguing that a guilty conscience is a catastrophic tax on your happiness. You could be a self-made billionaire, zero debt, huge philanthropist, but if you know you built your empire by suppressing wages or pushing toxic products...
The cognitive dissonance consumes all your psychological bandwidth.
Exactly. It's an internal corrosive agent. The joy of blamelessness is the ultimate multiplier. Without it, the other joys are totally hollow.
Yep. With it, even modest wealth yields immense psychological dividends.
It's a beautiful theory, but, it's very easy to stand on a mountaintop and say, just build wealth, stay out of debt, and never do anything ethically compromised.
Sure, it sounds idyllic.
Right. Did the Buddha actually give practical financial advice on how to do this, like operational mechanics for a regular person?
Oh, absolutely. The sources reject vague aspirations. They provide concrete economic blueprints, especially in the Dikkojanu Sutta.
Okay, what happens in that one?
A wealthy but unfulfilled layperson asks the Buddha for advice on finding happiness in the here and now, meaning immediate, material, worldly success.
Not just future spiritual stuff.
Exactly. And the Buddha gives 4 principles. First, diligent acquisition.
Which means what, practically?
Radical competence. Whatever your profession is, agriculture, trade, government, you have to master the skills. You have to be industrious, innovative, and organized. No coasting, no relying on luck.
So you have to be the absolute best at what you do so your labor has premium value. Got it. What's the second principle?
Careful conservation. Earning it is just phase 1. Protecting it is where most people fail.
True.
The texts warn you have to guard wealth from unjust taxation, theft, natural disasters, and my favorite category, uninvited inheritance.
Uninvited inheritance. That is such a polite way of describing grifters or family members who suddenly appear when you hit a liquidity event.
Right. But practically today, this means diversification, insurance, asset protection, defensive economic strategy.
Build a moat around your labor. Okay, what's number 3?
Virtuous friendship. This is ancient networking, Surrounding yourself with ethical, wise, generous people.
Oh, this maps perfectly onto modern sociology. Behavioral contagion. We unconsciously mirror the financial habits of our peer group. If your friends are highly leveraged and constantly buying luxury goods to signal status, you're going to normalize that and adopt it.
You're outsourcing your willpower to your environment.
Exactly. Okay, and the fourth principle.
Balanced livelihood. This is the operational core. Living within your means, regulating income and expenditures so cash flow is always positive.
Okay, but balance is highly subjective. One person's balance is another's binge. Did they actually codify what this looks like on a ledger?
They did. In the Sigalovada Sutta, there's a specific budget, a 1.2.1 ratio.
1.2.1. Break that down.
You divide your wealth into 4 parts. One part, 25%, is for immediate needs for yourself and your family. 2 parts, a full 50%, is reinvested directly into your business or work.
Wait.
And the final one part, 25%, is saved entirely for emergencies.
Okay, we have to pause here because a 255-225 rule is staggering. Modern advisors push the 50-30-20 rule, 50% for needs, 30% wants, 20% savings. But this ancient text is suggesting a full 50% should be aggressively reinvested.
Treating the individual like a growth stage corporation.
Exactly. But in an ancient agrarian society, how does someone reinvest half their wealth?
For a farmer, that's buying more land, better seed, replacing livestock. For a merchant, it's funding more caravans. The philosophy recognizes that stagnation is regression.
So, translating that to a modern W-2 employee, that 50% reinvestment would be aggressive contributions to index funds, or paying for certifications to upskill, or funding a side hustle.
Buying future cash flow.
Yes. But allocating only 25% to daily living expenses requires a very austere definition of what a need is. How do we balance ambition with this Buddhist concept of moderation? How do they stop lifestyle inflation?
Well, they use the fig tree analogy. It's brilliant. It compares a spendthrift to someone who climbs a fig tree looking for a meal. Instead of carefully picking the figs they need, they just violently shake the branches.
And what happens?
All the fruit falls to the dirt. They eat a few, but the vast majority get bruised, rot on the ground, and are completely wasted.
Oh, wow. That is a devastating critique of modern consumerism. We shake the tree of our labor, extract maximum capital, and then buy massive houses with empty rooms, clothes we wear once, subscriptions we forget about,
Just letting the surplus food rot.
while we exhaust ourselves shaking the tree. So what actually counts as a need?
The texts strictly define needs as the 4 requisites: food, shelter, clothing, and medicine. Everything else is a want. And human wants are infinite.
So the goal isn't just high income.
No, the goal is high retention. It's not what you earn, is what you have left at the end of the month.
It's the ultimate defense against hedonic adaptation. But building wealth is great. The way you build it matters immensely to your psychological well-being. This brings us to the ethics of the marketplace, right?
Yes. This is where Buddhist economics diverges sharply from Western economics. Western economics focuses on legality and profit. If a market demand exists and the supply is legal, fulfilling it is neutral.
But Buddhist economics adds a different axis.
Right, livelihood. The ethical nature of your labor permanently alters the psychological quality of the wealth.
And they explicitly blacklisted certain industries, the 5 unwholesome livelihoods.
Exactly.
And just to be total clear to you listening, we are impartially reporting the text's stance here. We aren't taking modern political sides on these industries, just conveying the original 2,500-year-old source material's boundaries.
Right, so the 5 forbidden trades are trading in weapons, trading in human beings like slavery, trading in live animals for slaughter, trading in intoxicants, and trading in poisons.
So regardless of how someone today views the meat industry or alcohol or the defense sector, the ancient logic was that these trades inherently rely on a cycle of destruction. You're injecting suffering into the societal water supply.
And under the framework of karma, which is just cause and effect, you can't poison the water supply without eventually drinking from it yourself. The wealth is toxic.
It carries the psychological weight of the harm it caused.
Right, the person engaged in these trades will eventually suffer immense mental anguish, no matter how rich they are.
Okay, but it doesn't stop at just outlawing 5 jobs. There's this massive psychological profiling system for how people interact with wealth, the Kammapogi Sutta, the 10 attitudes to wealth.
Yes, a masterclass in behavioral economics. It's a matrix built on 3 axes: acquisition, scrupulous versus unscrupulous,
Yeah.
usage, selfish for sharing, and insight, blind to the harms of sensual pleasure versus seeking liberation.
So what does this all mean? Let's walk through a few relatable examples of these 10 types. Start at the bottom. Type 1.
Type 1 acquires wealth unscrupulously is selfish with it, and lacks insight. This is the fraudster. They destroy their integrity to get the money, but they're so paranoid they refuse to even enjoy it, just hoarding stolen capital in misery.
And what about type 3?
Type 3 is the cartel boss who builds a hospital. They acquire unscrupulously, but they are generous. Yet they lack insight. They try to launder their conscience through philanthropy, but the cognitive dissonance remains.
Okay, let's cross into honest labor. Type 4.
The miserable workaholic. They earn ethically, but they are totally selfish and lack insight. They treat wealth like a high score and subject themselves to unnecessary austerity out of fear of losing it.
What about type 6? Someone who earns scrupulously and is incredibly generous but still lacks insight. Why are they at risk?
Because their identity is fused with their output. If a market crash wipes out their philanthropic foundation, their sense of self collapses. They believe they were the wealth.
Which brings us to the apex. Type 10, the ultimate ideal.
Earning scrupulously, enjoying it, donating generously, and having the wisdom to not be attached to it, they know wealth is impermanent.
So if their ethical empire burns down tomorrow, they might be disappointed, but they don't lose their mind. Their identity is untouched.
Precisely.
But let's be real, even type 10 people can lose their wealth to market crashes or bad luck. If wealth is so fragile, how does a person maintain happiness when the market turns? What's the ultimate risk insurance?
This is where we shift to the Anaṇa Sutta, the 7 treasures or spiritual wealths.
Assets that can't be stolen, taxed, or destroyed by fire, what are they?
Faith, virtue, shame, compunction, learning, generosity, and wisdom.
Wait, stop at shame and compunction. In modern psychology, shame is toxic. It's the root of trauma. How is that protective asset?
It's a translation issue. The Pali terms are hiriri for shame and atapa for compunction. In this framework, hiri is an immense, unshakable sense of self-respect. It's the internal voice that says, I am a person of high caliber. I will not degrade my character for profit.
Ah, so it's internal corporate governance. And otapa, compunction.
It's the healthy fear of systemic blowback, realizing that exploiting workers will eventually collapse your reputation. It forces you to play the long game.
Okay, so how do these internal treasures actually perform when the market crashes?
For that, we look at the Gautama Sutta, the 8 worldly conditions, or worldly winds. They operate in pairs: gain and loss, status and disgrace, praise and blame, pleasure and pain.
Inevitable fluctuations, the beta of human existence.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the uninstructed person rides a massive roller coaster, elated by gain, crushed by loss. Their identity is shattered when the wind shifts to blame or loss.
But the instructed person uses the 7 treasures as risk insurance.
Exactly. When loss occurs, they rely on virtue and wisdom, seeing that all things are impermanent to remain unshaken. Their bank account takes a hit, but their core balance sheet is overwhelmingly positive.
This highlights the difference between 2 concepts of happiness in the texts, piti versus sukha.
Yes. Piti is rapture or excitement. Sukha is deep, unshakable calm.
There's an amazing analogy for this from the texts. Imagine a weary traveler in a scorching desert. They crest a dune and see an oasis in the distance. That immediate adrenaline spike, the manic excitement of, I'm saved, that is piti.
A state of anticipation and agitation.
But when they finally reach the oasis, drink the water, and sit in the shade, their heart rate slows. That profound, stable satisfaction that is sukha. And modern society just chases the manic high of piti. The dopamine hits, the likes, the profits. But Buddhism aims for the unshakable calm of sukha.
Bypassing the exhausting cycle of piti.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the individual. Microeconomics. What happens when we zoom out to society as a whole? Does this cover macroeconomics?
It does in the Anaṇa Sutta. A king is facing an economic depression and wants to fund a massive, expensive religious ritual by taxing his starving population.
A top-down authoritarian vanity project.
Right. And again, impartially conveying the text here, the Buddhist advisor tells the king to stop the empty rituals and instead inject capital directly into the grassroots economy.
Targeted investments. Providing seed to farmers, capital to merchants, fair wages to laborers.
Exactly. If you empower the working class, the velocity of money accelerates. Full employment is achieved, crime plummets, and society stabilizes from the bottom up.
But even if we achieve this societal utopia, the ultimate goal is beyond material comfort, right?
Yes, the ultimate spiritual level is nibbana, or nirvana.
Right.
Inner freedom and the uprooting of sense pleasures.
And we have to clarify sense pleasure using the matchbox analogy.
Oh, the matchbox analogy is perfect.
Because people think they have to destroy all beautiful things. But the texts say the attractive things, wealth, beauty, luxury, are just the unignited match head. They don't cause harm on their own. The human mind's grasping and desire is the rough striker strip on the side of the box.
Right. It's only when the match head strikes the grasping mind that the fire of suffering ignites.
So you can walk through a world of wealth, and if you've removed the striker from your mind, there's no fire.
Which is the concept of Nissara Nibbana. Understanding the true significance and constraints of wealth. It's a tool to alleviate distress, not a master to be enslaved by.
Wow. Okay, so summarizing this journey, we debunked the myth that money is evil. We explored the four joys, the 1.2.1 budgeting rule, ethical earning, and using spiritual wealth as a shield against the 8 worldly winds. This isn't just ancient history. It's a highly applicable operating system for surviving modern capitalism with your sanity and ethics intact.
It truly is.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder. In today's digital age, our wealth isn't just money, it's our data and our attention. If the highest joy is debtlessness and blamelessness, are we racking up an invisible attention debt by giving our focus to algorithms that profit off our outrage? Are we truly blameless in how we consume information? Something to really think about the next time you open your wallet or your smartphone.